Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is Nithin Ramachandra from the NR Hour Sports Show. This is episode 840, joined by a really special guest. His name is Chris Shearn. Everybody knows him. He works at Yes Network. He covers the Yankees, Nets, Liberty games, WNBA. He covers all things New York sports, and he's one of the best out there. And it's truly an honor to have him on the show today. Chris, thank you again. And how are you and your family doing?
We're all great, and you said this before we started taping this. We've been trying to do this for a while, but I've just been so busy. I haven't been able to break away from everything that's going on. But as I just told you before we started taping, I mean, I would rather constantly be hustling like you. I mean, 840 episodes. My goodness, Nathan. I mean, take a break for crying out loud.
Yeah, no, I have a team of 6, 7 people that helps me out with the show. So not only me, but I got a team of 6 people. So they do.
Well, I respect the hustle. So good job by you.
Yeah. So before we go any further, I just want to say congrats to CC. I think his new book just came out. CC's new book. So I just want to say congrats to him.
Absolutely. CC's a great dude. He was a great pro. He's the guy that you definitely want in your corner if something's about to go down, because you know he'd have your back. And we had him on my podcast with Jeff Nelson. The other thing I love about CC, he tells the truth. You know, he's got nothing to hide. If you watched his documentary on HBO, which if you haven't, you should. I mean, it's such a great look inside his life. And now he was spiraling out of control, and now how he freely admits it. And if more people realize that if you just face your demons in the mirror, that's how you overcome them. And that's how you make a better life. And I don't know if you've seen CC recently, but dude is jacked. I need his personal trainer like stat.
Yeah, he works out. He's a workout freak now. But actually, I had Jeff Nelson. We had Jeff Nelson on our show.
I saw that. I saw that.
Yeah, he was awesome. But I want to talk to you about your career first and growing up as a child. When did you get interested in like getting involved in sports, and did you get to play sports?
My whole life. In fact, I still play baseball. I still pitch. I'm going to be 48 next month. And my late father gave me probably the best advice I've ever received in my life when it comes to playing. He actually tried out for the Yankees. He had letters from the Cardinals, Mets, and Braves. He was offered a minor league deal by the Yankees, and I found that out at his wake. He never said anything. He kept that to himself his entire life because he never wanted to seem as though we were a regret as him having kids. How that even took my father and put him on a higher level than where he already was. When he was around. I mean, it's so humbling that baseball flows through my veins because of that man. And the man that my father was, I could only hope that by the time my time comes to an end, that people are saying the same thing about me. Not about my career in TV or anything, but just being a man and being a father and being a husband. That's what I want to model my life after, my dad. But as far as sports goes, I have him to thank for baseball. I also have him to want to smack around a little bit, because when it came to football, if your last name was Shearn, you were pretty much a center. And that was all well and good when I played Pop Warner football. You know, when I'm playing guys that were my weight, I mean, you had to weigh in before every game, every Sunday. And if you didn't make weight, you didn't play.
Oh, wow.
So when I played Pop Warner and I was a center, everything was fine because I was going up against guys who were my size. When I got into high school as a freshman, the guys will remain nameless, but we had a freshman football team. And I was obviously made the center at 5'2", 120 pounds. And I would have been fine if we had that freshman football team, but about 3 guys on our freshman football team stole a car, and that car just happened to belong to one of the guidance counselors at the high school.
Wow.
So when they were kicked off the team, all of their friends followed suit, and we were left with about 8 guys. And those 8 guys on my freshman football team were bumped up to the JV team. So I ended up playing a lot of JV football as a freshman. and going up against juniors who are like 6'2", 280. And here I am at 5'2", 120.
Wow.
And you could just imagine, like, the WWE, somebody took me off the street and put me up against Hogan, because that's what it was every Monday. And I felt bad for my cousin Doug, who was a year ahead of me. He was the quarterback and I was the center, and I'd get blown up every play and he'd be toast. Wow. By the end. And if he watches this, if I tell him about it and he watches this, there was one particular game in Carteret that we thought Doug was dead at the end of the game. We were all on the bus. We can laugh about it now. We were all on the bus to go home and he was still laying on the field. That's how bad he was beaten. But football kind of ended for me after my freshman year. I stuck it out. That's another thing my dad instilled in me. If you start something, you finish it. Yeah. He didn't mind that I didn't play sophomore, junior, senior. I more or less went from being football, basketball, baseball to just basketball and baseball. And just to stay in shape, I ran cross country in the fall when I didn't play football. But I concentrated on basketball and baseball. I loved playing both. I really didn't get an opportunity in basketball, which I'll always look back to and I'll always be upset about, because I left everything on the floor. I mean, I wasn't the be all end all. Let's face it. I was one of those grunt guys who brought his lunch pail. I was undersized, but you were going to feel me on the blocks because that's the only way I was going to get in the game. So I tried to do all the scrappy things to stay in the lineup, but it just didn't work out. The head coach was a jackass. Sorry, but he was. And I have a lot of teammates that could attest to that. Yeah. As far as baseball goes, like I told you at the beginning of the answer, and I'm sorry I'm long-winded sometimes, but sports holds a very special part, not only in my life, but in my family's life. All across my family, there's a ton of athletes in it. I've been around it my whole life. I've been watching it my whole life. And as my good friend Mark Malusis always says, if you can't play it, talk it. Yep. And that was my realization when I got to college. You know, I could have walked on and tried playing baseball at Rowan, which was a Division III school, and they have a great baseball program. And I could have tried it, but I decided I wanted to focus on my academics. I wanted to start plowing ahead and doing what I needed to do to acquire my dream. And you know what, Nathan, not a lot of people, and believe me when I tell you, I never take this for granted. Everybody has an ego. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't have an ego. But I always try to help. I always, when I go to colleges, when I go to high schools, I always try to sit kids down that are serious about this, that want a career in TV and that want it for the right reasons. You know, don't go chasing this because of money. Just don't do that. Chase the passion. If you have the passion, and always remember what Derek Jeter said too, and you know how good Derek Jeter was. There's always, I think Michael Jordan, I think one of them said this, but take your pick, for crying out loud. But they said there's always somebody behind you that's working harder to take your job. Mm-hmm. Always. You can never rest. You can never take your foot off the gas. And I don't take any of this for granted. Nothing. I was just at the Liberty game last night. Yeah. In a fan capacity, because my guy Michael Grady did play-by-play. So I decided I want to bring my kids, both my girls, to see the Liberty play. And after the game, you know, they won a hard-fought game against the Dallas Wings. I want to teach my girls, if you want something bad enough, you got to fight, and you got to fight for it the entire time. And that's what this Liberty team brings to the table every freaking game. I mean, they have 10 wins. They had 2 all of last year. Now, look, the bubble was tough on everybody, but it was especially tough on them. And Walt Hopkins, his first year as a head coach, he's got 7 rookies. I mean, that's unheard of. That is absolutely unheard of. So to me, and I know you can't because you have to put the record in the record books because that's what it was. It was 2-20. But to me, Walt Hopkins, with his system and the personnel, with Natasha Howard only playing 2 games, by the way, is 10-9. He's an above 500 basketball coach. He gets the job done. I take that first year and I flush it. That first year, though, that team, and I know I'm bouncing all over the place, but that first team he had, he was able to teach them. Not a lot. They got a lot of playing time against a lot of great players in this league. There's only 144 of them. And they played against the best, the opt-outs aside because of COVID, but they played against the best that the world had. And they came out on the other side with invaluable experience. That's why you're seeing great second seasons out of Jasmine Jones. a great second season out of Kylie Shook. You could see the steady climb. Each of those players hasn't regressed. They've gone forward. And we always talk about this too. And please, thoughts and prayers and everything, good feelings to Asia Durr. You know, she's still suffering from side effects from COVID, from getting that last June. I mean, you put her onto this team with Sabrini and Escu as a 1-2 punch. I mean, the sky's the limit with the roster that Jonathan Cobb and Walt Hopkins put together. And I know you just asked me about my love of sports and if I played. This is what you get out of me, Nathan. The once I get going, I don't start.
I know.
They didn't call me motor mouth when I was growing up for nothing. But it just, you could see it. You could feel the passion. I love what I do. I love the teams that I cover. I've been a Yankee fan my entire life. The Nets, there you go. The Nets, how can you not root for that bunch of guys? I mean, just an unbelievable season. And I know they fell a little bit short. If Kevin Durant's shoe size was maybe an inch or two smaller, that game is over and they're headed to the Eastern Conference Finals. And who the hell knows, maybe Kyrie Irving gets healthy. They beat the Hawks. We're talking about the Nets in the NBA Finals tonight. But something tells me, Nathan, and I don't think I'm going out on a shaky limb here. I think the Nets will be back.
Yeah.
I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, the Nets will be back for sure. And obviously, with the full team healthy, now that they're going to have a full training camp, that's going to be now they have everything to establish as a big three. So
yeah, you know, I think LeBron took a lot of heat, a lot of unwanted and unnecessary heat for what he said, the comments he said about this season and how they tried to squeeze the 72 games into the 5 months. I mean, I think the Nets had 15 back-to-backs, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And because of that, I mean, look at all the injuries they had. They had 40-plus different lineups in those 72 games. I don't think I've ever heard that in my life, but that's a testament to the depth that Sean Marks was able to bring in after they traded, basically, let's face it, all of their depth away to bring in James Harden. I mean, there's one guy that actually there's two guys. I mean, they just have a place in my heart, and that's Karis LeVert and the Fro, Jared Allen. Those two guys, not only were they really good, and every year, I know Karis has had injury problems, but every year, Nathan, they're another two that you could see, like the Nets machine, the process that they use. And I know that's an overused word in basketball, the process, but their ascension from the time they were taken in the draft, and they were in the 20s. These guys weren't high draft picks, but they play like it, you know, and that's the only reason why they were able to acquire a guy like James Harden is because of the work that they put in. You know, I would love to see Allen, who's a free agent, back here. I mean, to me, look, DeAndre Jordan was great in his heyday. The guy's toast. Let's be honest. You know, and I know Jared Allen's looking to get paid, and he should, because this is the first time he could get paid. And I don't know if the Nets could give him what he wants, but to see him back and to see him as the starter,
yeah, that'd be.
And Clax as like the fill. I mean, it's almost the same guy. They're tall, they're long, they're athletic. And tip your cap to Steve Nash too, because and his coaching staff. Ime, who's now with Boston, Jacques Vaughn. Let's not forget about him. He led them in the bubble. I still think Kenny Atkinson got a raw deal, but I won't go there. I loved Kenny. I loved how he developed these guys. But let's face it, when you bring in Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden, well, it wasn't James Harden yet. It was just KD and Kyrie. It is what it is, but you got to tip your cap to the staff because 40 different starting lineups, winning the amount of games they won, having the second seed in the Eastern Conference and falling just a game shy of the Eastern Conference Finals with James Harden playing on a grade 2 hamstring, dropping 20 points. How could you not love that guy, Kevin Durant? I mean, the way they compete, even hurt. It's just, how could you not root for that? I mean, the guys that just want to leave everything out there and win a championship, I can't say enough about those guys and that team and the coaching staff and the front office. Sean Marks, again, just did a tremendous job.
Yeah, they're going to make more moves this offseason. I wonder.
Oh, of course.
For sure.
100%.
Yeah, so I want to ask you, though, what's it like working on Yes Network? Obviously, you cover all sports, Liberty, Nets, Yankees, but Yes Network is a big platform in New York and New Jersey area. So What's it like working on that, and especially working with Sarah Krusoff, Ryan Rucco, you got Michael Grady, you have and then you got all the other talented reporters out there. What's it like just working on at Yes Network for you?
Well, that's a loaded question because, you hear a lot of conjecture and you hear a lot of people just saying all this flowery stuff about their coworkers. And you always have to scratch your head and say, come on, there's got to be some animosity. There's got to be they can't love you. No, we do. Especially, and I'm not, this is no shade on like the Yankee crew or anything like that. But if you're on that Nets team,
yeah,
you get texts, you get shout outs. They don't exclude you. They include you into everything. And that goes the same with the Liberty, the same with the Yankees when you're a part of it. Everybody knows that the only way to be successful is to pump everybody up and to work together. And since you brought up the Nets crew, just being able to say I work with Ian Eagle.
Yeah, he was on our show too.
I mean, the guy, to me, and this is no disrespect to Jim Nance, but Ian Eagle's got to be the number one guy at CBS.
Yeah.
And I'm talking football, basketball, everything. He's just that damn good. And his son, Noah, is just as good as Ian is. I don't want Ian to get mad at me for saying that, but Noah is pretty damn good too. He's been doing those Nickelodeon things. He does the Clippers radio. It just tremendous. It's like the apple didn't fall from the tree. The apple stayed in the tree.
Yeah.
That's those two. It's just amazing to call him a colleague. And I got to tell you, I'll let you in on a little story. The first Liberty game when Sabrina Ionescu hit that 3 at the buzzer and I had the call that night, it blew up all over social media. Like ESPN had 2 million views. And that was the first time in my career that something like that has happened to me.
Right.
And who were the first people to text me? Ian Eagle, Ryan Rucco,
Oh, wow.
Sarah Kustok, Michael Grady. My phone was blowing up. Like you nailed it. You had the exact intonation, like everything. They couldn't like be more supportive. I just started doing this in 2019, the play-by-play stuff. So to hear from Ian and Ryan specifically, because this is what they do for a living.
Yeah.
And to hear from those guys, my peers, it was an unbelievable, like out of body experience for me. And it wasn't just relegated to them. I'm talking about people from everywhere, friends, relatives, colleagues, people on Twitter. The list goes on. I had Jeff Nelson critiquing it. He gave me a 6.6 on my podcast. Come on, Jeff, really? Come on, Nelly, give me a little bit.
Yeah.
But I can't say enough about my coworkers. They're not only super at what they do, they're great human beings. And I think that's the key. And if you're a great human being, everything else is gravy. Everything else trickles down into being great at your job. And if there's one thing I could tell your audience, and it's something I just came to realize recently, actually, and my life has been markedly better. So if I could impart some wisdom and some knowledge, and I credit my wife for this, my wife, Jackie, but I used to hold in a lot of negativity. And the only thing it did was make my life around me negative.
Mm-hmm.
I started putting a positive vibe on everything. And I started shedding the negativity and shedding the negative people in my life, because that was pretty much what was holding me down. And once I was able to just have a positive outlook on everything, and I know that's hard for maybe some people to understand, like, this guy has his dream job. Yeah, but there are certain ins and outs that come about throughout your 25-year career in television. And that's like really hard for me to say, because I can't believe it's been 25 years. But it's hard to stay positive all the time. But I've learned, and I hope I could if I reach just one person watching this, if you put out positivity, it comes back to you tenfold. It really does. You cannot walk around like a negative Nelly. You have to walk around like you actually like people and you like breathing. You have to make people's lives around you better. And if you do that, your life in turn will be better. So if everybody would do that, for crying out loud, this little blue marble that's spinning around the sun would be a better place to live.
I want to ask you about your podcast with Jeff Nelson.
Sure.
And also Jake Brown is part of it too, right? Jake.
Yeah. Jake's the character.
Okay. Yeah. So what's it like having Jeff Nelson as your co-host? And I've listened to a couple of episodes on your podcast, and it's amazing what you guys do.
Yeah. It's really weird, Nathan, because we kind of got thrust together, Nelly and I. It was a series after the All-Star break, I think in 2019. It was the year before COVID. I think Bob Lorenz, something happened and I had to fill in for him. And Nelly was the analyst. So I was like, oh my God, I've never worked with him before. How's this going to be? Are we going to have a rapport? From the minute we walked on set until the last second of the post-game show, like we got up and people were like, it's like you guys have been doing, because it's baseball, you know, it's just two guys talking about baseball. But for me, you know, listen to this. I've worked with Marv Albert. Mm-hmm. I sat in the same room with Marv, and Marv was like actually conversing. Like, to me, pick your favorite actor. That's like if your favorite actor was sitting in front of you. That guy was one of the influences for me to get into this business was Marv Albert. He to me, he was the be all end all when I was growing up. Now, obviously it's Ian. Yeah. But it's not two bad ones to have. You know what I mean? But I worked with Marv. I work with Ian now. And to work with Nelly, to work with somebody who my younger brother and I used to go on our side yard and imitate his pitching motion and his slider, I stunk. My brother actually had it down. I stunk. But to do that and to actually sit there and host a podcast with him, it's an out of body experience, man. And it took a little while and you have to realize this, like, these guys react better when you just talk to them like you and I are talking right now. Yeah. And I'll be honest, you know, I was a fan at first, but now it's just like, oh, it's Nelly. Yeah. You know, no big deal. But to say that I have that podcast with him, it's just like you would think. It's amazing. It's amazing to work with the amount of talent that I have seen on the field and now call them colleague. Oh my God, the toothpaste never runs out. It's always in the tube. It's amazing. I'm blessed. It's pinch me every day I wake up. It's just amazing. And Jake is so good because he's got that he knows he's good, and he is good, but he's self-deprecating. And that is it's a very good quality to have, but not if you do it constantly. And Jake knows when to sprinkle it in. You know, he prides himself on knowing all the information. He knows the Mets inside and out. He knows what moves they should make. He is like a Mets savant. He really is. So to have that triumvirate together doing that podcast and just three guys talking about baseball, like the Yes Network, when I hosted the BP show, I asked my producer, I said, do you want me to get Nelly on a Zoom? We could fill some time for the show. He said, yeah, do 6 minutes. Well, we ended up doing 16 minutes and he had to cut it down because once we start going, it's just a conversation. Like, I don't have a clock in my head. I'm not going to interrupt an answer that he's giving me when it's fantastic, because we could use that either to bump into a segment, bump out of a segment with. It's just gold. And doing my podcast first at Yes, it was called And We're Off. I don't do it anymore. And kind of upset about it. But once the pandemic hit, it kind of blew itself out of the water. And then this New York Post thing started, so I really didn't get back to it. But I loved doing it because it taught me so much, Nathan. As I'm sure this is teaching you, you know how to bring the conversation along. It's not asking questions, it's having a conversation. It's like you and I are sitting on a couch watching a game. And that's what I try to do for the viewer in a post-game show, in a pre-game show. My job as the host is to take the ball out of the bag put it on the tee, and like tonight, it's Jack Curry and I doing the Mariners and Yankees, and over the next couple of games in the series. But I put the ball on the tee, and I stand back, and I let Jack take the driver out and hammer it down the middle of the fairway. But that's my job. It's to make Jack shine. It's to make Nelly shine. It's not about me. And look, I used to write everything. I still write my BP shows when I host because I want it to be in my voice. But when I first started doing it, and I'll freely admit this, in 2006, 2007, I thought it was about me. I thought it was about my writing. It's not about me, and it's not about my writing. It's about the damn team on the field. That's what a lot of people don't get. It's not about you.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the team. The fans want the information about the team. And like I just said, it took me a couple of years to realize that, but once I did, I was better off. But that comes from someone who grew up watching the Dan Patricks, the Keith Olbermans, the Craig Kilborns, the Carl Ravaches. I don't want to leave anybody. Stuart Scott. Who is the guy from Hawaii? I forget. I could see his face. Neil Hartman. No, not Neil Hartman. He was down in Philadelphia. I forget his name, but the two guys out on the West Coast too, Stan Verrett.
Oh, and then Michael Eaves? No.
Maybe. I don't know, but I grew up in college. Like, they would replay SportsCenter from 9 till 2 in the afternoon. I watched every time. It was a repeat. I mean, and my girlfriend at the time used to tell me, "What are you doing?" I said, "I might have missed something. I got to watch again." Or if there was a joke that Kilborn made, I was like, "Oh, let me think about that." So I would watch it over and over and over again. And that kind of shaped me. That kind of molded the clay. Like when you see me on the K show, when I do those updates, that's kind of when I kind of bring my SportsCenter personality out.
Yeah.
But when I do Yankees, when I do Nets, I have fun with Frankie Ice. I mean, how can you not? Because Ice is just, he says some outlandish stuff. And he says it like right before we go to break. So he'll say something funny, and the last thing you'll hear is my stupid rear end cackling as we go to break. So it's the last year has been tough on everybody.
Yeah. But
getting back in, doing shows with Ice, about to do shows with Jack Curry over the next 3 days, and doing baseball and talk. Look, Jack has not only brought my game up, I love sitting watching games with him. Mm-hmm. I've played this game and have been around this game my entire life. Watching games with Curry, I still learn stuff. And I pick his brain as the game goes on. And he's just like Isola. Their note-taking during the game, it's Hall of Fame. Jack Curry will be in the Baseball Hall of Fame at some point. Right. I don't know when, but when he is, I will be there because that dude deserves it more than anybody. I mean, you don't see behind the scenes the work he puts in. He doesn't just walk onto the set and start talking. He puts the damn work in. And I'm getting goosebumps. That's how pumped I am to work with him the next 3 days. So, look, I hope I'm not rambling on too much for you here. I want your audience to see how into this I really am and how much the passion is there and how much I do really put into this for everybody. Like when they watch me when I'm on set, I want them to be the most informed before the game and the most informed after the game. And I want to be honest with the fans. I don't want to try to blow smoke up their rear ends. I don't want to, try to lie to them. This is New York, son. You can't lie to New York sports fans. Mm-hmm. They could read through that. They could see the forest through the trees. They could read through all the BS. Just be honest with them. And that's what I try to do, especially with the Nets and the Yankees. If it was a brutal game, we're going to talk about it being a brutal game. If something positive happened, we'll focus on that too. But if it was brutal overall, that's going to be the overall picture we're going to paint. And the fact that we have that freedom to do that at Yes is unbelievable. And that's because we have a tremendous boss in John Filippelli. So it's just, Nathan, it's been 20 years I've been at Yes. I've been in the business 25 years. And every year it keeps getting better. It really does. And I don't want it to ever end. I mean, I'm getting up there. I'm no spring chicken, but I hope I could do this as long as I have breath in my lungs.
Yeah. So you're gonna be in the Yes Network studio tonight with Jack and John Flaherty and all.
Just Jack Curry. Over the next 2 nights, they play 10 o'clock tonight in
Yeah.
Seattle on Tuesday and 10 o'clock Wednesday night. And then Thursday's game is an afternoon game at 4 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So we're back at it at 3:30 on Thursday. I'm pretty sure Nancy Newman has the batting practice show tonight and tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the afternoon game Thursday, I don't think there's a BP show before that. So I think it starts pregame at 3:30.
You know, I'll be watching. Let's go.
I know you will be. I know if I don't get a DM from you during these games, I'm going to be very disappointed.
All right, I'll take a screenshot of you guys and post it. But since you have limited time, so we usually do this segment at the end, but I'm going to do it now. It's called the rapid fire segment. You ready for this?
Sure.
All right. Kawhi Leonard's laugh or Kevin Hart's laugh?
Kawhi. The way they made the NBA theme song on NBC to that laugh, that was tremendous. I got to go with Kawhi.
All right, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Obviously, you worked with Marv and Ian, but if you would have ranked them between 1 and 2, who do you put first?
That's tough because I got to give them both their due. Marv to me is a legend. Ian is already a legend and on his way to being like a super legend, just because of what he does in every sport. You could put him behind the mic for anything. He could make curling entertaining. He could make highlight entertaining. He could make flies fighting each other entertaining. When you say that for a play-by-play guy, that's what separates Ian from everybody else. Like, my goal is to come as close as I can to being him. And when I do the Liberty games, I hope it comes across, because I've done the Nets studio for probably since 2006. So I was in studio and I was filling in for Jessica Taft in that 2009-2010 season where they only won 12 games.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of awful Nets teams. During that season, Ian Eagle and Jim Spinarkle made those games watchable, because it was like a bad basketball team on the floor, but in your head, listening, it was a Seinfeld episode. If you're able to do that, you are damn good at what you do. And Ian Eagle, I can't choose. I just can't. I know that's a bad response, but look, Marv was something to me as a kid. Ian has actually kind of tutored me going into my Ivy League play-by-play stuff, because I did football and basketball for Ivy League. And now, of course, I'm doing the Liberty. My sheets that I make during the game, and I'll send them to you on a direct message just so you could see. But they are Ian sheets on steroids.
Oh.
He sent me his sheets, and then I kind of did my thing, and I sent him a picture, and he laughed, and he said, see, it's different for everybody. But he said, you do what you're comfortable with. I prepare for 30-point blowouts every game, because you never know. There are some times, Nathan, that I will look down at the end of the game and I didn't get to anything that I wrote down.
Oh, wow.
But I have a very, let's just say it's my superpower. Like, if I was an X-Man or if I was in Marvel, my superpower would be, if I write something down, I remember it. So I get killed instantly. But I would remember everything I wrote down. I never have to look down during a game, which is my superpower.
Wow. Favorite memorable interview you've done and favorite memorable game you called?
Well, the game is easy. It was the first game for the Liberty this season when Sabrina hit that shot. I mean, all of the stars aligned and everything just happened perfectly. And she hit that shot, and it was the first game, so they were only allowed 1,250 people in Barclays Center, but every single one of them were on their feet. It was calling a game in that arena. I don't care how many people are in it. Calling a game in that arena is ridiculous. And favorite interview? There's a couple I've done over the years, but Jay-Z's up there for sure.
What? Jay-Z?
At the groundbreaking for Barclays Center, he was there.
Oh, okay.
So I got to talk to him there, and I actually made him laugh. Well, he made me laugh too during a break because I kept telling him we're almost coming back. He goes, "Don't, it's okay, it's okay." And then I said, my wife's a big fan. And he goes, "Well, what about you?" So I said, "Of course, but my wife is a little bigger." I mean, my wife was kind of his era of hip hop, and I was like the era before him. There's like an 8-year gap between me and my wife, so that's the reason for that. But Jay-Z, Louis Gossett Jr., who was at a net game, I got to talk to him about one of my favorite movies growing up in the 80s. That was Iron Eagle, and they used to call Iron Eagle Iron Eagle. So I actually threw it back to him, and I called him Iron Eagle. So it was kind of fun to do that back and forth. And, just walking around the Yankee clubhouse when we were allowed to do that before COVID, the conversations off camera I had with Austin Romine just about baseball, just picking his brain, being a catcher. I would not be surprised if he's a manager at some point.
Yeah.
The guy just knows, he's a catcher. He just knows so much about the game. He can manage a team, I think. I don't think he's big into analytics, so I don't know where he'd fit in. But I'm pretty sure he can handle that. But just everything about the Yankees, everything about the Nets, getting sweat on by Brooke Lopez after games, after he's had big games, because he's 7 feet and I'm 5'11", sweat all over the microphone, all over my hand. And let me say something about Brooke before we move on. I really hope, I know CP3, a lot of people have their heart set on him winning his first ring in his first finals. But Brooke Lopez is one of the most solid professional athletes I've ever been around in my life. During that 12-win Nets season, I filled in for Jess Taff a lot. The first one in front of his locker with his uniform still on after every one of those losses, answering every one of the questions, was Brooke Lopez. The first one. As soon as you walked in the locker room, he was just sitting there with his head in his hands. He was upset, obviously, but he answered every question. He was there every game. So I'm kind of pulling for the Brookie monster. I want the Bucks to make this a series. I mean, I wouldn't be upset if CP3 won it either. It's just nice to have new teams in the finals, for crying out loud. I know the league didn't want Milwaukee and Phoenix, but tough. It's nice to have these teams that have fought very hard. They survived this brutal 72-game stretch over 5 months, and it's going to be an exciting finals. Both these teams, 2 games during the season, the Suns won both, and they won each game by a point. So the final should be interesting. I just hope Yanni could get on the floor in some capacity too.
Yeah, that's a big question right there. And I want to ask you about the Yankees. Obviously, we're struggling, and they're inconsistent. And some days they have a good week, and the other days the bad week. So, and then there's rumors out there that the Yankees might go hard for Jose Barrios from the Twins, but I don't know how accurate is that. But what do you think they need to do? Do you think they need to sell the team or buy the team and buy more players?
Well, that depends. And Nelly and I talk about this, and we have talked about it the past couple of podcasts. I'm trying to shoo away. That'll look great on camera. But around the All-Star break, starting tonight with the Seattle Mariners series, this is a brutal 19-game stretch. The Mariners are ahead of them in the wild card. Then after they leave Seattle, they go right to Houston.
Ooh. Yep.
And the Astros are playing out of their minds right now. I think they've won 9 straight, if I'm not mistaken. They've taken the AL West lead away from the A's, who've been playing really well too, as we both know. Then they go on the break. Then when they come back, they dive right into a 4-game set with the Red Sox. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yep.
So that's in the Bronx. Then they get a day off. Then they play Joe Girardi two times. And then it's 4 up at Fenway, 3 down in St. Petersburg against the Rays. So these 19 games, and that last game against the Rays, Nathan, is July 29th.
Right.
The deadline is the 31st.
That will tell, yeah.
So these 19 games, if they play under 500 ball, like this Seattle series is huge. If they drop 2 of 3 to Seattle, I mean, just start shaking your head. I mean, we could sit here until we're blue in the face and say they're going to turn it around. They're going to turn it around. Aaron Boone said there's plenty of runway left He said that on June 6th after they got swept by Boston the first time. And at that point, I tended to agree with him, and I kind of got behind him at that point. And I'm with Hal. I don't think the problem is Boone. I really don't. I think it's the way the team was constructed. The damn stadium was built for left-handed power. And the only lefty they have in the lineup is Brett Gardner.
Yeah.
And listen, I love Brett. I used to sit in the dugout next to him in Staten Island in 2005 when he was playing for the Staten Island Yankees. And I turned to him and I said to him then, I said, if you just keep hitting, you'll be in the Bronx in no time. And in 2008, I filled in for Kim Jones, and he got called up the same night.
Wow.
And we kind of saw each other in the clubhouse, and we just kind of looked at each other and smiled and gave each other a nod. And I was like, told you. So he kind of holds a special, and a lot of people, and I get their frustrations with him, and I get that they say he's done, it's over. This is a guy for the past 3 or 4 seasons, Nathan, who was brought back or under contract as a 4th outfielder.
Yeah.
Every year, some different injury, whether it's Aaron Judge, whether it's Aaron Hicks, who can't stay on the field, whether it's Clint Frazier, who was supposed to be one of the guys, and then he had the concussions. He's always forced into the lineup every day. He's 37 years of age. He's not supposed to be an everyday player. But what does the guy do? He goes out there and he plays.
Mm-hmm.
I know sometimes it's to the detriment of the team. He doesn't have a strong arm. He can still cover ground. He's still a solid defender. But listen, the Yankees aren't Jose Barrios away.
Yeah.
They're not. They're just not. The rotation right now is in peril. Garrett Cole has a 5.24 ERA over his last 6 starts. That is sending up alarm bells. Aroldis Chapman sent out a tweet that he's going to shut people up, but his ERA is over 10 over his last month. This is scary right now. And you have a bunch of righties who seem to wither and go to nothing when there's a good starter on the mound. Now, look, you and I both know we watch this team intently year after year after year. And most of the time they get to the postseason, and that's where we see these cracks in the armor. You know what I mean? Now we're seeing them in the regular season. You know, and then people start making excuses. Well, we're hitting home runs, we're just hitting solo shots. That's your excuse? That's what your excuse is? I don't want to hear that. You know, play baseball. I just saw right before I came out here to talk to you, we had something on during the pandemic where we had Paul O'Neill and David Cohn talk over opening day 1996, Derek Jeter's debut. And they showed an at bat of O'Neill against the Paul Ossenmacher, okay? Tough lefty for O'Neill. And he was pounding him outside. And David Cohn said, you know, he shot a single into left field. And David Cohn said, you know, Paul, that was such a great at bat to watch because I saw your approach the whole time. You were thinking to yourself, if he's going to pound me outside, I'm going to take something to left field and it's up in the zone. I'm just going that way. And you did it. Why can't these guys do it? Why? Why? You see the shift? And I know there's Yankee fans out there that beat their chest and say, we're not the Bronx Bunters, we're the Bronx Bombers. But at some point, when you look in the mirror and you're a game over 500, your worst record in 5 years at this point in the season, you got to look in the mirror and you got to say to yourselves, we got to start playing baseball. Like that second game against the Mets at night, that Sunday night, when Voit led off with a double. And then Rougned Odor, who isn't an answer either, but when he laid down that drag bunt and beat it out, I was like, all right. He was trying, nobody out. He was trying to get that guy on second to third with 1 out. That's baseball. That's not giving the other team an out. That's giving your team an opportunity to get this guy in from third with 1 out. And he beat it out. So they had first and third, and then Urshela just absolutely demolished one. Look, they have 3 hitters in this lineup. 3 hitters. DJ LeMahieu, Aaron Judge, and Gio Urshela. 3. Gleyber used to be. I don't know what has happened to Gleyber Torres. He has a huge leg kick, and every pitch he tries to hit one into Montana.
Right.
I don't know what's happened to him. When he first got here in the trade, he was gap to gap and he showed power. I don't know what happened. But to Gary Sanchez's credit, he has worked very hard. He's lowered his leg kick and he's been pounding the ball everywhere. So credit to Gary Sanchez. But this team, I looked, Nathan, every starter with the exception of Corey Kluber, they are giving these guys 4 or more runs in support. With that bullpen and this offense, that should add up to wins, and it's not. And that's what's scary. They had the pitching going at the beginning of the season. They didn't have their lineup going. Now the lineup's starting to score some runs, and the pitching isn't there.
Yeah.
It might be too late before they start putting 2 and 2 together. I hope it's not. I really do. And I'm not dunning them because I go back to what the Nationals did, and I know they were a different team. They had a different pitching staff. I get it. You know, when you have Mad Max and that cast of characters down there, you have a shot. Doesn't matter. But they were under 500.
Right.
And they made a run, and they won a series. Mm-hmm. So nothing is ever over after 83 games. Nothing, especially if you're over 500. But I'm telling you right now, I'll go back to what I said. These 19 games, starting with the Seattle Mariners series tonight, if they play under 500 ball, to me, and Chris Carlin just said it on our podcast yesterday, Jeff Nelson agreed with him. Mm-hmm. They play under 500, they got to sell. Yeah. I know Hal doesn't want to do that, and you can't say that at the beginning of July and expect your fan base to come support the team. If you're going to say, oh, no, we're going to sell. No, you can't say that as an owner, for crying out loud. But if his team on July 29th and that Tampa series ends, if they're under 500, you got to be done with it. Mm-hmm. You have to. You have to improve your team. And then the questions are going to start coming in. And it's one that Jeff Passan asked. It's one that my former colleague Lou DiPietro at Yes asked, who now works for WFAN. He used to do the podcast with me. Is it time to maybe start thinking of Aaron Judge? You know, I know you don't want to as a Yankee fan. I don't want to see the guy go. But he's under team control for another year and a half. And then you have to ask yourselves, are we going to sign him at 31 years of age to a 6 or 7 year long-term deal? Mm-hmm. Are we going to give him $200 million, $300 million when we know he's going to be 37, 38 at the end of that deal? And we already have a guy that can't play the field in Giancarlo Stanton, who's on this team through 2027 and a team option for 2028 as a DH. And you heard Michael Kay, you heard David Cohn, you heard Paul O'Neill throughout the broadcast all the time. That hamstrings Aaron Boone.
Yeah.
Gary Sanchez should not be on the bench when Garrett Cole is pitching. He should be DHing, but you can't do that because you need Stanton in the lineup and he can't play the field.
Right.
I don't know what they're going to do, but in my estimation, this is the worst they've been from 2016, since 2016. And we know what they did in 2016. They traded Chapman. They traded Miller. They got Frazier. They got Torres. They hit the reset. It wasn't like a complete reset, but it was a reset enough where you thought, all right. Sanchez came up. He had that ridiculous 20 home run, 53 game stretch. We got a catcher. Judge is on his way. At the time, Tyler Austin was on his way, but he's no longer with us. But you get it. I mean, they have some tough decisions to make, and these 19 games are going to prove what this team is made of. They have to look at themselves in the mirror, Nathan, and it's now or never. The king, Elvis Presley, said it. It's now or never. This 19-game stretch is it. And I know a Met fan on Twitter told me when I tweeted that out that keep dreaming their toast. If I can't dream, Nathan, what am I doing here alive right now? Seriously.
Or like Yogi says, it's not over till it's over. So.
Absolutely. But the clock, she is a ticking. As he used to say also, it gets late early. Yeah. And it's getting super late on this Yankee team.
So a couple more things before I let you go.
Sure.
This is a two-part one. What's it like working with Meredith? Because she's one of the best out there right now when it comes to covering the Yankees, and she deserves every opportunity, in my opinion. Meredith is one of the best. And what's it like working with her? And do you think does Sabrina Ionescu remind you of Kobe?
Okay, let's tackle the Meredith one first. I really rarely get the opportunity to work with her because I don't do the BP show as much as I did do. But when I did do it with her, I don't think I had more fun than I did because we used to do that segment runs, hits, and errors.
Yeah.
And it kind of extracted her personality. Most of the time you see Meredith, unless she's getting champagne or getting hit with a Gatorade bottle, you see Meredith very serious because she's trying to give you all the news and information about the team that she gets throughout the season. And she does a tremendous job when she does it. She's a true pro. She feels the room. She feels the pulse of the fans. She knows what questions to ask. And when I get to work with her, again, I'm blessed because, you know, I get to show my personality. She gets to show her personality. We actually did it in the one time we worked together this year. Our producer, Mike Medvin, brought that segment back around and we were able to have a little fun back and forth. So, I mean, it's just another colleague that I could say, and she used to cover the Philadelphia 76ers before.
Yeah.
So it's not like she's a one-trick pony. If we needed her on the nets, she could do nets too.
Yeah.
I mean, she could do anything. She's so we're that's the great thing about all of us. We're so interchangeable. You know, I had the trifecta one weekend. I had Liberty on Saturday, filling in for Meredith on Sunday, Nets game 3, I believe, in Milwaukee.
Oh, wow.
Post game.
Mm-hmm.
So I was out of my mind. Like, I was so pumped. Like, it got, because I was like, oh, wow, man, you got like the Iron Eagle schedule right now. You gotta knock this out of the park. So yeah. Working with Meredith is awesome. I just wish I got to do a little bit more. Maybe tonight I'll get to work with her tonight.
Yeah.
Because they're out in Seattle and she'll be at the stadium. Unless she traveled with them. I don't know if she did or not. She has been doing that. She's been going places. I just don't know if she went out to Seattle. As far as Sabrina goes, I don't think she's like Kobe, although her work ethic is like Kobe. But I will give you this, and it's what a couple of people at Yes and I talked about. I think she's like the James Harden of the New York Liberty.
Oh, wow.
And I think people, and I'm not just saying this because I do the games. Trust me. I took my kids last night. That was their first Barclays Center experience. They had a blast. And like I said way back at the beginning of this podcast, the grit, the toughness, the fire that this team plays with. And I did a event at the New York Stock Exchange, their summer series for the Liberty. And I said this there, I'll say it again. They embody the city. They embody like those tough, gritty Knicks teams of the 90s. They do. You could bring it to the tough, gritty Nets teams before they got KD and Kyrie. You know, those teams that went out there with Karis LeVert and they were a playoff team in the bubble last year. You know, they hustle. They have heart. It's so much fun to watch. And the great thing about WNBA basketball, the phenomenal thing, if anybody's in my age bracket, it's basketball from when we grew up. It's ball movement. It's moving without the ball. It's motion. It's constant motion. And to see Sabrina from the level I saw her last night, her court vision is like it's that emoji with the head exploding. It's like I was trying to teach my daughter after every pass. She tied a career high with 12 assists last night. And I was trying to teach my younger daughter, you see how she's not looking at the ball. She's looking at her teammates. She's looking at the movement. She's patient. She's waiting for an opening. When that opening happens, the ball's gone and it's in her teammate's hand before the defense even knows what the hell happened. That's the testament of a true point guard. And that's the other thing you get in this league. You get true point guards. Yeah. I know we're getting 2 in the finals. I'm not Drew Holiday and CP3. I love watching them play. But you don't get that every night in the NBA. You just don't. There's still a lot of ISO. Can't take that. And the fouls every 5 seconds. Yeah. I know it's because these guys bitch, moan, and complain every second, but they let them play. Like if you watch that Nets-Bucks series, that got really chippy and there were not a lot of whistles. That's my kind of ball, son. Like the old school, like NCAA tournament, the Big East tournament back in the day. You know, I'm talking Mark Jackson, Chris Mullen, Walter Berry on my St. John's Red Storm against those Patrick Ewing Georgetown teams. They used to beat the hell out of each other. And it was so much fun to watch because it was constant flow. That's what the WNBA is. And that's why I love it so much. That's why it's so awesome calling these games. And yeah, they've taken it on the chin a couple times, but they've been hurt. They've had a very small rotation in some games. They only had 8. Well, they had 9 last night. Dee Dee Richards got hurt in her last game, but she played sparingly, but she played. But if you want to look at it from a technical standpoint, Walt Hopkins had 8 players in his rotation the last 2 games, and they won both games. It's just a testament to his style of play, and to the personnel he finally has been able to plug in to make his style and his rotations work. It's been so much fun to watch. They got another couple games before the Olympic break, and I'll be sitting at home on my couch because I have a lot of Yankee responsibilities coming up. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to support my team, my squad, my Liberty squad. So I'm out here in 95-degree heat, and I'm wearing my hoodie because I just finished the workout with my wife before I came out here. So I was like, I'm going to be a sweaty mess, but I don't care. I'm repping.
Yeah. So Suns or Bucks?
I said earlier I want
Brooke.
I'm kind of like leaning towards my guy Brooke. That's my heart. My head says Suns because they've just been going through everybody like a hot knife through butter. You know what they did to the Clippers? You could see CP3 after he came back from the COVID. He just kicked it into another gear, putting up 41. Paul George was no slouch with Kawhi Leonard hurt. Let's be fair. I mean, Paul George almost carried that team into the NBA Finals without Kawhi Leonard, for crying out loud. So this postseason, Adam Silver has to be very happy because this postseason really, really was exciting and brought people, I think, back to like good, exciting NBA basketball. Out of the bubble, out of that, having actual fans in the building helps, obviously, for everybody. Money's being made, which is great for everybody, too. So I'm just very excited to just sit and not have like a real – I just want to watch good basketball. Yeah. I know you do, too. Who are you pulling for, and who do you think is going to win?
I got the Suns in 5.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Especially if Yanni isn't at 100%. I think that's extremely fair because I'm telling you right now, Chris Paul, he smells blood in the water. He doesn't want State Farm. He doesn't want State Farm over his head the rest of his life. He wants that trophy over his head.
Hey, if he wins that trophy, that State Farm commercial. That trophy will be in that commercial.
There you go. Yep, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. That is a great prediction on your part. And I tend to agree. Like, I want the Bucks for Brooke, but I think, like you, I think it ends in a handful of games.
Yeah. So the last 2 things here, our team is part of this foundation called the Hugh Jackson Foundation. He's a former NFL coach, but now he's the offensive coordinator at Tennessee State with Eddie George. So we're trying to help him prevent human trafficking, making sure the community stays safe and the kids stay safe. So I'll send you the foundation. So you can go
Absolutely. That's tremendous. Good job by you and good job by Hugh and everything he does with that. I would be more than honored to help that out.
Yeah, thank you. And the last thing here, would you like to say anything to all the nurses, doctors, and essential workers right now?
Oh, God. What is there not to say? I mean, they're not called frontline workers for nothing. I mean, they put themselves at risk when the rest of us were able to crawl into the fetal position and pray for the best at home and keep each other safe. They were trying to keep everybody safe, and they were putting their lives on the line and their families' lives on the line. I just can't say enough. Between the doctors, the nurses, the medical staffs everywhere, the general practitioners, the pediatricians, not just the people in hospitals, the doctors and nurses everywhere, the PAs, the physician's assistants. You can't leave anybody out. Everybody that's in that, the administrative assistants that welcome you into wherever you go. I mean, it's just from top to bottom, what they've done over the past year plus goes beyond anything. And they are heroes in every sense of that word. So I just wanted to thank, I will thank everyone from the bottom of my heart for all the hard work that they've done and for what they continue to do. And no one's better. No one's better. They're the heroes, and I'm glad that sports teams actually took care of them. When they started letting fans back in the building, some of the teams like the Nets especially, they opened up the doors to a lot of frontline workers. So good on the Nets, good on every organization that did that. And I hope they continue to do that in the future because all of these people deserve it greatly.
Yeah, well said. And there it is. That wraps up episode 840 with the great Chris Shearn. You can find him on Yes Network. He covers the Liberty, Yankees, Nets. Man, he's one of the best out there. And you can catch him tonight on Yes Network with Jack Curry, Yankees Mariners tonight, 10 p.m. Big series for the Yankees. But I just want to say thank you, Chris, for joining the show. It was truly an honor. And you and your family stay safe. And we would like to have you back as a returning guest at some point so you can meet the full team. So.
Anytime. This was a lot of fun, Nathan. I really appreciate you having me on. I appreciate the kind words, and I would be more than thrilled to do this again. Thank you so much, bud.
Thank you, and good luck tonight. And hopefully the Yankees sweep. I don't know about sweep, but hopefully the Yankees take 2 out of 3. So.
Let's just win a series.
Yeah.
Let's not go overboard. Let's just win the series.
Yeah, thank you.